Good evening and welcome to the April 13th council meeting. Members of the public were provided with the following methods to watch and or participate in this council meeting. You can attend in person at the North Dumfries Community Complex. You can attend electronically via Zoom to observe the meeting or to speak to an item on the agenda. You can watch the live stream by accessing the meeting on the Township YouTube page. Written comments that were provided to the clerk's division were also provided to council members and will be part of the public record. Before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge and thank everyone for joining us this evening. We appreciate your participation. As we come together to serve the community, I ask that we create a welcoming and positive environment for everyone that includes respect, that we listen to each other with care, speak thoughtfully, and engage calmly. Kindness, that we treat everyone, council, staff, and the public with respect and understanding, and inclusion, that we embrace diverse perspectives and respect each other's opinions. Together, we can make this meeting space one where respect, kindness, and inclusion are at the heart of everything we do. Behavior that is disrespectful, destructive, aggressive, or intimidating will result in most individuals being asked to leave. I'd now like to call the meeting to order. If you have approval of the agenda, Councilor Austin, please.
Moved by myself, second by Councilor Rowland. The council adopt the April 13th, 2026 council meeting agenda as presented with the following addendum. 1, add correspondence received April 10th, 2026 from Matthew Wilson, owner president of Wilson Sand and Gravel for item 1128, report number PW 05-2026. Request for tender award ND 2026-C5-RFT. Footbridge Road Bridge Rehabilitation. And 2, add correspondence received for item 11.2.10, report number PW 07-2026, Shullard Road Bridge Update.
All those in favor? Yeah, thank you. I'd now like to give the Indigenous acknowledgement. We acknowledge the land on which we gather today as the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Neutral people. We acknowledge the enduring presence of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land today, their achievements and their contributions to our community. We offer this acknowledgement as an act of reconciliation between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples of Canada. But it's only words. Our actions are what speaks for us. And I've come to, in the last few years, work quite a bit with the Indigenous people, and I've found them to be respectful, honorable individuals, and it's been a privilege to work with them. So I hope that we can all work to come together in all areas, not just Indigenous, but in all races and types, so that we can become a stronger country because of our diversity. So let's start and pause on that. Thank you. Is there any disclosure of community interest or general together? Councilor Austin.
11.2.4 discussions on 10 Water Street.
So thank you. Adoption of council minutes, Councilor Rowland, please.
Moved by myself, second by Councilor Tilley, that council approve the following meeting minutes. 6.1, council meeting minutes dated March 23rd, 2026, and 6.2, public planning council meeting minutes dated March 24th, 2026.
All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Now we are at 7.1, presentation to Adam Furlong, Public Works Lead and Certificate from the Association of Road Supervisors, AORS, regarding his completion of the Associate Road Supervisor designation. We sure grew up in Adam. I remember when I was taller than you. Come on up, Adam.
You're 7 pounds 9 ounces.
I don't think it was there, but that's it.
Congratulations, Adam. Well done. Brownie.
Thank you. Just want to thank everybody for putting your hard-earned time into me too, and I do appreciate the continued education I get with the road. So this is an honor for me. So thank you very much.
He was shorter than me one time. You do not have to hang around. That is already on your So the motion passes around, and you want, Adam, join your motion? See ya.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Ossner, that the presentation to Adam Furlong, Public Works Lead, regarding the completion of the Associate Road Supervisor designation be received with congratulations.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. And now we have, request to lift consent items. Request to lift consent items, does anyone distributes any items from consent agenda? Councilor Roman,
We're looking at 10.2.1B.
any others? Just scratch it out. So, please, Councilor Tilly, eliminating 10.2.1B, please.
Moved by myself, second by Councilor Roman, that the following reports listed on the April 13, 2026 consent agenda be received and the recommendations contained therein be approved and acted upon. 10.1.1, report number FD 04-2026, Fire Department Incident Summary, March 2026. And that the following information items as listed on the April 13, 2026 consent agenda be received. 10.2.1, communication correspondence, proposed resolution received from Paul Sullivan, Principal Practice Leader at this key advocacy, and the tax policy candidate regarding Ontario property tax reform. C, correspondence received from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing regarding the Building Homes and Improving Transportation Infrastructure Act 2026 Bill 98. 10.2.2 advisory committees. A, Leisure and Lifestyle Advisory Committee, minutes dated December 3rd, 2025. And B, Brandon River Accessory Advisory Committee, RAC, meeting minutes dated February 26, 2026.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. And 10.3.1B, please, Councilor Roman.
Yeah, Mayor, the town of Saugeen Shores is endorsing the Protection Conservancy Ontario proposal to include $10 million per year in the provincial budget for heritage helping housing funding. So I'm just wondering if this council would be in support of endorsing that as well. I see the town of Corporation of Town of Saugeen Shores has included a copy of their motion where they endorse this and are asking other municipalities to also support it. It's based on a program in Alberta, similar program as they have in Alberta. Basically, to take heritage properties and to find ways to turn them into different sorts of housing, ranging from affordable housing to attainable housing. That's the idea behind the grant program.
Any comments, questions, councilors? Would you like to copy the motion or create a?
I find it just copying it.
CEO McMahon.
I just make one suggestion, Madam Mayor, if you're going to simply use the earlier resolution from the town of Saugeen Shores, instead of referencing MPP Lisa Thompson, that we would put down Brian Riddell, MPP Cambridge.
Thank you. So Councilwoman will move the motion, you will second it? Yes. That's a very short.
Compact.
It's
That sucked.
Like beach.
Go touching the ground. Do that.
So we will receive 10.2.1B, and then we will give the motion. So. Are we good? Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So the first paragraph is to receive the item, and then the following paragraphs are the actual motions.
Oh, so I have to read both.
Yep.
Okay, does that make sense? So moved by myself for the Council Williams that the resolution received from the town of Saugeen Shores regarding the architectural service of Ontario, the ACO. Proposal to include $10 million per year in the 2026 provincial budget for Heritage Helping Housing HHH grant funding be received. And whereas older buildings have inherent sustainability and provide economic, environmental, and social benefits for Ontario communities. And whereas reuse of existing buildings reduces the need for increased infrastructure that accompanies new builds such as sewer, water services, new roads and sidewalks. And whereas reuse of existing buildings can reduce construction waste, extend the life expectancy of landfills. And whereas keeping older buildings helps the community remain visually richer and enhances identity while building its tourism brand and appeal. And whereas creating a new application-based matching grant program of $10 million per year modeled on the existing Alberta program would incentivize owners and small developers to keep, fix, and reuse heritage buildings to create new housing. And whereas such a grant program would provide an alternative to Ontario Heritage Property Tax Relief Program, which has limited impact on developers and reduces municipal revenues. And whereas such a grant program would provide a simpler and more direct way for heritage building owners to fund renovations or conservation. And whereas Ontario developers surveyed by the National Trust for Canada in 2014 ranked a heritage revolving fund as their top incentive to encourage heritage development if the grants are simple to apply for and to administer, and the fund is large enough to meet at least 33% of the demand, so that applicants have a reasonable chance of recovering the cost and effort of applying. Therefore, be resolved that the Council of the Township of Dumfries endorse the Architectural Conservancy of Ontario ACO proposal to include $10 million per year in the 2026 provincial budget for Heritage Helping Housing HHH grant funding, and that resolution be sent to the Premier, Minister of Finance, Minister of Citizenship and Multiculturalism, and MPP Brian Riddell, Cambridge, and be circulated to all municipalities in Ontario.
All those in favor? Great, thank you. Next, we have 11.2.1, report number recreation 02/2026, trust fund Friends of the Library, Air Library, Waterloo Region Library, Air Village 2026, deliverable and program. Any questions from the public? Any questions from the council? Seeing none, can I have the motion, please, Councillor Oster?
Moved by myself, second by Councilor Williams, that a report number 02-2026 be received, and the council approves the allocation of $3,000 from the Air Library Fund for disbursement to the Air branch of the Region of Waterloo Library.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Eleven point two, report number rec 05/2026, contract award request for proposal, North Dumfries 2026 EAE4 RFP by Park Improvements. Any questions from the public? Councilors. Motion, please, Councilor Roman.
Moved by myself, so by Councilor Tilley, that rec report number 05/2026 be received. And that council award the request for proposal ND 2026 E4 RFP for the Clyde Park Improvements Project to Ghent Construction Limited in the amount of $139,846.74 plus HST. And that contingency allowance of $43,190 to be established for this project. The mayor and clerk be authorized to sign all documents and agreements necessary to facilitate this work.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Next is 11.2.3, report number recreation 06/2026 Air Paris Band financial support for relocation during construction of the Air Community Complex. This is for the public. Councilors, any questions? Councilor Nosis, you already have as well. Councilor Roman, I thought first. Councilor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So my question is through to staff. I'm just wondering, is there any additional space in any township owned facilities? Do we have room at the NDCC here, or do we have room at Roseville that would accommodate the band before we have to look at outside space?
Staff, please.
Thank you, Mayor Foster and Councilor Rowland. We did investigate some space options at Roseville Community Center. However, with the construction happening at the Air Community Complex, we've had to relocate the summer camp that utilizes that space out to Roseville. Graciously, the North Dumfries Lions Club has vacated some of the use of their space to accommodate the summer camp that's coming in. So that space is full. And in addition, that you, Councilor Bowman mentioned, the North Dumfries Community Complex, we will also be undergoing some construction here at this facility that is going to require the movement of some of our current users into different spaces. And so on that review, it was felt that the arrangements that the Air Paris Band had made with Knox United Church seemed to be a prudent choice at that time.
Councilor Ross.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you also, I have a question to staff. And that's, is there any kind of other organizations as well that currently use the ACC? I'm just wondering if are we setting some sort of precedent here that we would cover groups in the event of needed construction on our spaces?
CEO McNeely.
Mayor, through Councilor Wilms, we have been successful in adopting space, or readapting space to meet all of the user groups during this construction period, other than the Air Paris Band. And because we moved the summer camp that normally uses Victoria Park and the Air Community Center to Roseville in an expanded footprint, Lions have been kind enough to free up their space so we can accommodate the mass children at the summer camp for the July-August time period. It also then caused a displacement of the artist camp, which was normally held for a week or two at the Roseville Community Center. And we've been able to relocate them to Christchurch Anglican for that 7-day period. And so we are not doing a precedent setting. This is set up, this has been triggered because of the reality of construction at 2 separate locations. Air Community Center and the Net Zero Arena project here. It has temporarily compressed our available space to deal with our user groups. So it's triggered not because these individuals or groups wish to be relocated, it's caused by our actions, and this keeps them whole. In the case of the artist camp that normally operates out of the complex in Roseville, they are still paying the rental fee as if they were in Roseville. The church will invoice us and we will then reimburse the church. So it's a flow through. The only instance of being out of pocket was for the Air Paris Band, and it was both for their rehearsals practices as well as the storage of their equipment, because we can't allow access into the building once the security fence is put up around the perimeter of the site.
Seeing no further questions, can I have a motion, please? Councilor Williams.
Moved by myself, second by Councilor Osner, that report number 06/2026 be received. And that council approves the allocation of $150 per week plus HST if applicable to Knox United Church commencing the week of April 6, 2026 until the end of construction on or about September 11, 2026 at the Air Community Center for those weeks when the Air Paris Band conducts a practice or rehearsal and storage in their facility, and that the expense be charged back against the ACC materials and supplies operating account.
All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next, we have report 11.2.4, 10/2026, request to publicly disclose closed session report number CAO 09/2026 Township acquisition of 10 Water Street. Any questions from the public? Any questions from council? Comments, Councilor Rowan?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. With regards to this information, I don't have any concern with that, because I think everything we did is we did our due diligence. And now that the deal has been completed, I think it's in the best interest of the public to know what really happened, so I think it's good movement.
Mr. Tilly?
In agreement with Councilor Roman, I guess the only thing would be if there's any personal details mentioned about the reasoning why we decided something for, say, the residents' comfort or anything like that. I think there might be some information there that we just don't want, and we haven't gone through this before, so I'm just clarifying that this is something that would be made sure that nobody have any hurt feelings that way.
We would not be moving forward something like that. It didn't happen in this situation, so it's not an issue. We know
Right.
for it.
Yep.
So if there's no further comments, I believe the motion is to you, Councillor Tilly.
Moved by myself, second by Councilor Williams, the CLK report number 1026 be received and the council direct the township clerk to publicly release report number CAO 09/2026, subject to any redactions in accordance with the section 14 personal privacy of the Municipal Freedom of Information Protection of Privacy Act, MFIPPA.
All those in favor? Yeah, thank you. Can you go again, Jackie, my book? Next, we have 11.2.5, report number clerk of 11/2026, appointment of the auditor, board of directors for Dumfries Corporation, and the temporary waiver requests. Any questions from the public? Councilors, any questions? Motion, please, Councilor Rowan, you're getting all the long ones.
Moved by myself, second by Councilor Tilly, that CLP report number 11/2026 be received and the council in its role as a shareholder in Grandbridge Corporation approve the appointment of KPMG LLP as auditor of Grandbridge Corporation for the year ending December 31st, 2026. And that council in its role as shareholder in Grandbridge Corporation approve the nominations for appointment to the board of directors for Grandbridge Corporation effective May 1st, 2026. Craig Mann, Jerry Remmers, Scott Saint, Terry Smith, Sandra Voss, and Lynn Weller. And then the council in its role as a shareholder in Grandbridge Corporation grants request for a temporary waiver of the shareholder's right under section 3.2D of the unanimous shareholder agreement to appoint a director to fill a vacant position on the board of directors of Grandbridge Corporation effective May 1st, 2026. And that council in its role as shareholder in Grandbridge Corporation grant the approval of a temporary waiver of the requirement in section 3.3A of the USA that the board of directors of Grandbridge Energy Inc. consists of 11 directors, and that council in its role as a shareholder in Grandbridge Corporation grant the approval of a temporary waiver of the limit set out in section 3.3E of the USA, which provides that the chair of the board of directors of Grandbridge Energy Inc. may not serve for more than 4 years.
Those in favor? Carried, thank you. USA does not mean United States of America.
And Ms. Sherwood.
Yeah, the shareholders. Next is report 11.2.6, report number CEO -10/2026, quarterly update on the Net Zero Arena project, Fair Farmers Mutual Insurance Community Center. Questions from the public? Councilors, any questions? Councilor Rowland, Councilor Ross.
Madam Mayor, my question is through you to staff. I'm just wondering with regards to the signage on the building, the signage at the street. Will the signage on the building mention the Township of North Dumfries, and will the signage on the street mention the Township of North Dumfries? I noticed that all current signage that was installed does not make any reference whatsoever to the Township of North Dumfries.
CO McNary.
So Madam Mayor, the building that will be, the signage that will be mounted on the exterior facade of the building, and over top of the windows on the McNeil elevation portion of the building, just references Air Farmers Mutual. And on the pylon sign at the street, it actually, what is today just one large panel that lists North Dumfries Community Complex will be divided into 2 panels. One will say North Dumfries Community Complex, and the second portion will read Air Farmers Mutual Insurance Community Center, and then the existing lanes lens will remain in place.
Okay, let's have the person go on.
That's a follow-up question. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to clarify then, so there'll be no township logos or township signage per se. It'll just be the North Dumfries Community Complex signage, but nothing that will have the township logo.
That's correct.
Councilor Austin.
Just a couple questions on the added cost of the HVAC and air exchange units for $650,000. That was question one, and question two is the missing of that having to relocate or replace the three existing rooftop HVAC air exchange for another $185,000. How did that all come across?
CEO McNeely.
So Madam Mayor, through to Councilor Hofstad. As it relates to the requirement to replace the three existing rooftop HVAC units, the original intent was that those existing units would be temporarily removed from the roof. When the second floor addition was finished, those existing units would be then placed back on now the taller roof system and be reused. Two things arose. One, no contractor would warranty the work. So they were not willing to certify that the movement of the units to the new location and warranty their work as well as the performance of those units. Those units were installed in 2011, and they're approaching in the next 3 to 5 years their life cycle replacement. So we would not qualify for a warranty, and as such, they would not bid on those rooftop units. The other is those units were sized for the existing hallway as well as the 6 locker rooms. When we actually ran the calculations for those units, they were found to be undersized for the existing space. And it's only exasperated when you now have the extra run of ducting that would go from the new height of the roof down to those rooms. As it relates specifically to the HVAC and the exchange units and the electrical network, as you can appreciate, this is a very large building. And so the extensive number of linear meters of hydro cabling comprised of copper is quite significant in its order of magnitude. We now face both retaliatory copper tariffs, so product leaving Canada going into the United States, and then the tariff of the finished good coming back into Canada. That's as it relates to copper, plus copper in the present period is very, very expensive in the marketplace. So those two factors have really thrown the electrical component, wiring, much higher than the original forecast. And the other is the HVAC units. Once again, we cannot buy HVAC units that are manufactured in Canada. They exclusively come from the United States, and there is a tariff on those units. And because of the copper component in some of those units, the input portions are also subject to the tariff. So those are the contexts in which those two cost centers are higher than was in our original budget estimate. We were able to offset some of that expense through competitive bids from trades locally. That was a little bit lower, as well as savings on the overall components of the steel, both in terms of insulated paneling systems, as well as the steel girder components.
So we took this information to Councilor, to MPP right now. And he got a hold of the ministry. He's going to be talking to the ministry on our behalf to see if we can get some help with this. Councilor Austin, you have any questions?
So the ruling 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, actually, of the Supreme Court in the United States that the tariffs were found to be non-justifiable. And that the US government, as of tomorrow, is I think their website is gonna be up for importers, et cetera, that can receive their money back from these tariffs. We don't, that these items, why wouldn't they be included in the tariffs that are non-binding?
The component of the Supreme Court decision did not deal with the units and the components I just talked about. The President of the United States used a different section under national security as it related to steel, aluminum, and copper products. And so they were not subject to the Supreme Court argument and or the arising decision. And as such, those aspects of the tariff realm remain in place.
Councillor Austin.
Okay, so then those tariffs should not be more than 15%, should they not?
Components of those were at 55.0%.
No further questions, Councillor Goldman.
So thank you, Madam Mayor. Just following up what Councilor Oster was talking about, through the CEO. If I look at financial implications, it says here there's no financial implications, but with these unseen costs, wouldn't there necessarily be financial implications, or are we just using up all of our contingency, level of contingency?
We haven't used all of it, but it's used a good portion of our contingency.
So Madam Mayor, the reason why the first paragraph says there's no financial implications on the 26 budget is because we're not asking you to amend the 2026 budget. However, in the second paragraph of section 4, staff do draw that we're tracking on budget. However, as we noted in section 3, there are certain pressure points, and the fact that we have a very fine amount of money left unallocated in the contingency.
Councillor Austin.
Last question, are there no units that are European fabricated that would fall outside of Mr. Trump's tariffs?
So Madam Mayor, through to Councillor Austin. Yes, there are European made or manufactured HVAC units. Two cautionary notes. One is the cost of transportation, because they obviously have to be brought into Canada. The other is the nature of the way we wire our systems. Our currency, I don't mean dollar, I'm talking about our how we wire and power units. They are different than the Canadian currency, and it would represent a special order. We did explore the feasibility of that, and we were advised that the American market was the most appropriate, given timing, transportation, and compatibility with our electrical design parameters. I have to appreciate, because this is a net zero building, we have no carbon burning appliances. So we have very extensive electrical generated heating, cooling, air, humidification systems, which means quite an extensive piece of infrastructure, but also heavier gauge of wire going to a number of these units, given the fact that there is no natural gas powered units in the new build.
Councillor Austin.
Yeah, and that's the reason why it was surprising to me that the leaders of this technology are not coming from Europe, because Europeans use more of these styles and systems than the United States. And in fact, that anything that comes from Europe is CSA approved, and there should be distributors to Canada, but I'm not 100% sure on that. I just know that when it comes to a lot of the best systems for efficiency and stuff, they seem to come from Europe more so than the United States. But I guess in this case, it doesn't happen that way.
Any further questions? Can I have the motion, please, Councillor Austin?
Moved by myself, second by Council Wells, that CA report number 10-2026 be received for the purposes of information.
All those in favor? Thank you. Next is 11.2.7, report number PD 2020-26. Proposed official plan amendment file number OP 0325 and proposed zoning bylaw amendment file number ZC 0425. Any questions from the public? I believe David Gilbert and Natalie, you're here to speak on it?
Yes,
Go ahead.
good evening. Yeah, my name's Dave Galbraith. I'm the president of Up Consulting here on behalf of the applicant Woodhouse Group. We're here tonight with regards to proposed official plan amendment and zone change application for a couple of consolidations along Northumberland Street. These files came for a preliminary meeting a couple months ago. Since that time, we've been working with staff to revise the applications. I would like to say that staff have been incredibly helpful through this process. They've identified a number of complementary uses, and we've worked collaboratively on refining the bylaw before you tonight. With that, I will pass it over to my colleague Nabila, who will walk you through the presentation that was submitted as part of our delegation request.
Hello, good evening. Give me one moment to share my presentation. Sorry about that. Just having a little technical difficulty.
I can share it if you would like. I have it loaded here on our end.
Okay.
That make it easier for you?
I think this should play now. Sorry about that.
Nope.
Yeah. Is that playing? Are you able to see my slides?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Sorry. Okay, so as Dave mentioned, we are looking at two properties, one on 141 to 143 Northumberland Street, and the other is on 148 and 286 Northumberland Street. These are located just south of the railway and east of the Ninth River. This is the context map that we have here, and I believe that it's been covered in the previous council meeting, so I won't go too much in depth. There are a mix of uses around the subject property, and our proposal will complement those mix of uses. So the purpose of the original application is a site-specific official plan and zoning bylaw amendment application to allow retail as a standalone permitted use on the site. And specifically, it adds general industrial with special policy area designation on map 2.1 of the official plan, as well as a retail component within the current Z9 zone category that is currently not there. And after we submitted the application, we received supportive feedback from staff of the original applications. And in addition to that, they proposed an expansion of the scope, which is essentially to permit other complementary service-oriented uses as well. And to clarify that drive-through restaurants are prohibited on the site. So the additional uses supports Township's complete communities objectives, and the evolving character of the of the evolving service commercial character of the Northumberland Street corridor. And all the proposed uses are intended to operate within the existing buildings. I would also like to say that currently the client does not have any new tenants, but this opens up the possibility of providing additional tenants in the future. So these are the proposed bylaws that we are including as part of the discussion with the planning staff. An expansion of the permitted complementary service-oriented uses, and these uses can be found in the slides I showed in the slides. We included definitions as well, and a prohibition of drive-through restaurants. And that is all for me today. Thank you very much. So in conclusion, we are here to support the recommendations from staff in moving this motion.
Thank you. So Michael, would it be fair to say this is just a cleanup thing because those existing uses in existence right now are not actually on the system and should be corrected? Is that correct?
Through you, Madam Mayor, this is corrective in nature, but also it was an opportunity for planning staff to review the current zoning on the property and to expand the uses. Obviously, Northumberland has become a primary corridor in the Ayr urban area. It provides an opportunity for us to accommodate more commercial opportunities in Ayr where we have limited commercial land. So this was an opportunity for the owners of the property to recognize the retail uses on the property, to legalize that, but then also introduce some additional uses that we think would benefit the community. If they're small in scale, they shouldn't introduce any sort of impact to the surrounding community, to the surrounding neighbors. But it's a benefit to the Ayr urban area and generally provides an opportunity for additional commercial opportunities.
Thank you. Any other questions, councilors? Seeing none, can I have a motion, please, Councillor Jones? Yeah.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Tilly, that PD report number 20/2026 be received. That bylaw number 3633-26 being a bylaw for an amendment to the Township of North Dumfries official plan amendment number 33 to redesignate the lands municipally known as 141 to 143 Northumberland Street, 148 Northumberland Street, and 286 Northumberland Street for general industrial to general industrial with special policy area on map 2.1 of the official plan to permit standalone retail commercial uses and additional complementary service oriented uses, and to prohibit drive-through restaurant uses be adopted. And that bylaw number 3634-26 being a bylaw to further amend general zoning bylaw number 689-83 to rezone the principal property municipally known as 286 Northumberland Street from Z.4 urban residential to Z.9 industrial with site-specific exemptions, and to establish site-specific exemptions to the Z9 industrial zone for the properties municipally known as 141-43 Northumberland Street, 148 Northumberland Street, and 286 Northumberland Street to permit standalone retail commercial uses and additional complementary service-oriented uses, and to prohibit drive-through restaurant uses be enacted. And that Township Council is satisfied with the requirements for a public meeting in accordance with sections 17, subsection 15, and 34, section 17 of the Planning Act have been met.
All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next is 11.2.8, report number PD 05/2026, request for tender award North Dumfries 2026 C5 RFT footbridge road bridge rehabilitation. Any questions from the public? You may come up to the mic, give your name, please, to speak. Hi.
Hi, thank you, Madam Mayor. Council, thank you for having me. When you said, is there any questions? I'm the owner of Wilson Sand and Gravel.
Questions or comments?
Well, both, you know, we're very scared by closing that bridge. It'll be detrimental to our business. You know, we've been in business since the 1940s, over 70 years now. I'm third generation. we feel a good business that's good to our community. We pay our taxes as we should. We don't have any problems with the township. We mind our own business. Shutting down that bridge both ways be devastating to us. And we pay nearly 23 cents to an organization called Torque. And a portion of that goes to this municipality. Well, they claim.
Goes for the rehabilitation of pits.
I'm sorry?
Torque goes to the rehabilitation of abandoned pits.
Yeah, I understand, but a portion, I believe, comes back to the municipality. Well, that's what we're told. Well, regardless, that is my comment. It will be devastating to my business. A lot of industry depends on us. A lot of people depend on us. I have a young family. I don't see why there isn't something that we can do, like get the traffic moving one direction for 3 months, or streetlights. As I said in my letter, which I hope you all read, it will be really, really crippling to put all that traffic, not just from us, but from the Shep subdivision. And, other gravel trucks use the road, sometimes more than us. We're not a big outfit. We don't have a lot of trucks. What other trucks do is not what we're here for, but the bridge is used by a lot of people, and it will be devastating to us. I'm looking for something in return. I'm looking for some other solution.
See on the hearing?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As Mr. Willison has indicated, the proposal is for the closure of the Bridge Road during the period of the bridge rehabilitation project. That decision wasn't taken lightly, and it's motivated by three key factors. One is there is very little land to the east and west of the bridge as an approach either from the West River Road and or off of the Highway 24 corridor. And if we maintain one road open, perhaps it's in the form of a traffic signal that would allow traffic in intermittent periods to move east or west as the case may be. The concern is traffic backing onto specifically the Highway 24 corridor and or West River Road. It wouldn't take too many vehicles to queue, waiting for the traffic light to turn green without impacting those adjacent north-south road corridors. And obviously, given the volume of traffic and the speed on Highway 24, that's a specific concern. The other is we need what they call a landing area for equipment and materials and supplies associated with the bridge rehabilitation project. And if we keep one lane open, we have tremendously reduced the landing area for the temporary storage of equipment and materials and supplies to support the rehabilitation project. The final concern is we have tried to compress as much as practical the construction window to shorten the impact, because as Mr. Willison has indicated, it is going to affect not only his operation, being the haulage of aggregate from the Beaky Road site, but other traffic that may use that corridor, the residents in the vicinity of the West River Road and the Shep subdivision, but also the commuter traffic that comes out of southern Cambridge down the West River Road and then crosses over the Grand River at Footbridge to try and access the Highway 24 corridor, and generally continuing their travel south, whether it be to the 403 or the Paris Brantford district. We're totaling about 2,300 vehicle movements a day at the footbridge. So it just gives you an idea of the order of magnitude of traffic. So in that context, we're trying to minimize the impact, understanding that there is an impact. If we are to go back to one lane of continuous travel, it essentially means that the construction window actually extends longer. And the cost to complete the project would then be that much more expensive because the contractor's on site for 4 calendar days. I also worry about whether the ministry would actually allow us to allow traffic to potentially queue to a modified traffic management plan if we were to have 1 lane of traffic available. We have not had that discussion with the ministry in that regard. If council does go ahead with the contract as presented in this report, we would be speaking to the contractor to see whether or not there was the ability at certain intervals during the construction window where they may add a shift or add hours to their typical work day to try and compress the work period in terms of number of days on site and accelerate the delivery of the project. Obviously, until we've got a preferred contractor, we're encumbered to have those discussions with a contractor in that regard.
Councilor Austin.
Great, currently, the way, with the shutdown on that, what is the alternative route that, for example, Mr. Wilson's vehicles would have to take?
I laid that out basically, sort of, kind of in here without, oh, sorry.
Go ahead, see on the camera.
So I'm sure as Mr. Willis was going to share with council, he would trucks entering or exiting his property on Beaky Road would have to proceed westerly to Shoaldice Road, north on Shoaldice Road to Sprague's Road. And then depending upon which way they're oriented, they would either head north or south on the Sprague's Road. If they're proceeding north, then they would be going up toward St. Andrews, Cedar Road intersection. And once again, depending upon whether they're going east or west at that point, they would travel east or west on Cedar Street, including potentially if they're going east over the bridge at that location.
So, just to continue with that. On average, taking north, south, east, west, on average, how much time per vehicle would that take out of your day?
That would probably be a better question for Mr. Willis to speak to.
Like, are we talking an extra 10 minutes, an extra?
No, it was, I have it here. It was, we timed it. It was, where is that, Nikita?
I believe it was an extra 20 minutes each way.
Each way. Compared to right now, it's under 2 minutes.
See, I have a very quick question. Are they allowed to go into the Cedar Street Road?
So because of the nature of the construction, region would have to waive their temporary truck routing zone, just like we've been handling other displaced traffic when the regions go to other roads, either in the county and or here. There is the ability under legislation to temporarily waive those no truck routes. In this case, we're speaking about it in southern Cambridge. Because it's caused by a detour.
I think we understand your concern, and we're moving between a rock and a hard place. This bridge has to be done. And we afford to go to extra shifts and extra time and pay extra money to have it extended and use the single lane, if we're even allowed to.
I have a few ideas.
Go ahead.
Well, first of all, I can supply them the land for their landing. We've done that before. I've supplied ACON many times when they work in the area. So I can certainly supply them a landing area. I would, you know, I'm a businessman, but we can certainly supply them a landing. We're 3 minutes away. Can they work at night? Can they work at the weekends? Can they just work at night?
And that's gonna cost us.
What am I supposed to do as a businessman when I go to my people that I have contracts with and say, I can't supply you at this rate anymore? And they say, well, then we're gonna sue you. And I say, well, Unless I have a helicopter, I can't get, I can't afford it.
We cannot not do the bridge.
I understand.
It has to be done.
I know, no, I realize your business will go on, you'll do your bridge and my business will suffer exponentially.
Councilor Rose?
For you, Madam Mayor, to staff. Is there, so beyond what Mr. Wilson was mentioning about contract, like kind of making sure doing the most work in the least amount of time is, I think that would be the best option here.
Yeah, or nights, or if they work at nights, they can build bridges, it doesn't have to be
Is
light
that
out, they're working
something-
underneath in the dark anyway.
That is not something we've priced into our current 2 point whatever million we've got in our budget for this, right? And that would increase the costs.
So Madam Mayor, through to Councilor Wells, without having negotiations with prospective contractor, I can't tell you what the order of magnitude would be. As I indicated, that if council identifies, in this case, TV Civil, as the preferred contractor, I can have those conversations with them about extending work hours, and it may not be consistently day in, day out, maybe at select periods of time during their contract, but the intent of shortening their days on site. But that's in the context of the full closure. If council wishes to move in a totally different direction in terms of maintaining a singular lane of traffic, albeit you do, let's say, the south side of the road, keep the north side open, you restrict movements east-west, and then once that portion is rehabilitated, you would move to the north side of the road and do the repairs on the second side of the road. I can tell you it will extend the days on site just because you're duplicating certain tasks. I mean, the reality is, council may recall when Trusser Road and the 2 bridge crossings of the Myth River were rehabilitated. It was a full closure of those 2 sections of road. The same thing that County Road number 29 over the Myth River approaching Drumbo. There is efficiencies by closing the road, allowing the trades to do their work, and you compress the number of days on site. It's also potential budgetary savings in terms of cost. So,
You know what concern I have is Highway 24. If we close it and go to a single lane or whatever, the backup and everything else is going to be horrendous. And it already is an awful stretch. I'm concerned about that. Councilor Terry and then Councilor Johnson, did you? Yeah, Councilor Terry and Councilor Johnson.
So my concern is that when this was presented to us at council, when we originally heard this, one of the options that was going to be presented to us to consider and to price out or how to handle this was the fact that the roads, we were not going to close the bridge. Originally, it was not going to be a closed bridge. That was how we were presented. Just to remind council and everybody else here, I used to rebuild the bridges and roads. So I'm keenly interested in this just because I've done this actual work. And for the reason that I would have brought it up and discussed it further is because we are basically making it impossible for the residents on the other side of the road, either way, or just transportation through. I would have said, well, I would have asked that we definitely had presented that as an option, or staff to present it to us as an option, so that we could work with the fact that Mr. Wilson here is dealing with something that he's obviously concerned about for his business. I can appreciate the fact that we do have to take it as a potential cost, but I would have wanted that, and I actually will say that I think that it's something I'm going to, as one's voice here, request that we can have that option presented to us to do that. As a single lane, there's different options. I agree with you, Madam Mayor, about the Highway 24 issue. And it might be a possible savings to you, and as a consideration of a lot of bridge rebuilds, they will allow one direction only. So they'll allow the direction to maybe go on to Highway 24, but not come off of Highway 24. So then you'd have to go a different route to come on, but you go a different route to come on. And so we got this old route to come off of the Highway 24. Sorry, I'm messing myself up a bit. But what I'm saying is that there's some potential options here From the aspect that we could maybe say that half away. If we can't do it all, we maybe staff could find a way to do half of it and work with. So, and I understand that staff has worked hard to meet our time constraint by getting all these quotes in this time period, and they've worked hard to get this pricing and good pricing. But again, I'm just gonna express that I would like to see this option so that if it is a potential option, we can see that. And to not reestablish, but just as an addendum maybe to the quote offerers, that they can report back how they can do that. So that's my interest level. I did actually have sorry, just out of curiosity, and as Mr. Wilson offered here, but since we own the property behind the West River Road Reformed Church, was that going to be some potential laydown area? Was that found up? Sorry, Madam Mayor, through you.
So Madam Mayor, through to Councillor Tilley, yes, we did look at that. We were concerned about two things. One is it's an unsecured site and we wouldn't necessarily be able to protect equipment or tools or materials at that location. And there was a risk then to the general contractor. The second is just the frequency of movements then on the West River corridor and potential conflicts with the north-south traffic along the West River corridor. We're trying to mitigate or minimize that cross-pollination of traffic.
That's awesome.
So this concern is nothing new with a lot of construction that's been done. You look at the local and what's going on still in Paris with the shutdown. The only difference is you can continue. It's just going to cost you more, but you can continue to run your business. You don't rely on people coming to your door to buy from you.
Oh, yeah, I do.
Well, they don't physically walk in, purchase something and walk out.
They drive to us and they won't drive to us now.
So you can still supply, but that being said, if we can look at an option that may be a better option, maybe it's possible for doing that. I remember that at one point we were talking about, we didn't have the money to do this bridge. We were talking about, well, then just shut it down.
Yeah.
Well, that's not a good option for you if we just shut it down because we can't afford to do this bridge. So we came up and we budgeted and put in the budget, move things aside, whatever, to fix this bridge. We gotta fix it as fast as possible. If there's a way for us to do it that doesn't disrupt you terribly, then that would be good to do that. However, I'm not willing to say it's gonna cost taxpayers an extra $300,000 because it's going to make you drive an extra 18-20 minutes around the bridge. I mean, unfortunately,
I paid the $300,000.
Oh, you can, but anyways, CEO McNeely, how would this affect, so tonight we're supposed to be voting on the RFP. How does this affect that? And how does it affect our timeline for working on it?
So Madam Mayor, council has a couple of options available to it tonight. You can reject the tender and ask staff to go out with a new bid document, giving different scenarios of other alternatives for traffic management. Council can provide direction that staff go and speak with the preferred vendor, in this case, KB Civil Constructors, to see what alternative traffic management might look like and what that exposure potentially could be. And/or council could just defer a decision on the report and staff would sit down with our engineering group and look at different scenarios and try to do an estimate of what that value would be and return back to council before we actually go and speak with the recommended constructor. And the reason why I'm saying that third option might have to be that way, because I don't want to actually infringe upon the bid document in its present form.
Those thoughts.
So I think deferring might be the best option until the next meeting. Like, I don't think we want to defer for long, Madam Mayor, because obviously this needs to get done and it needs to get done this summer.
Yeah.
As fast as possible, and so that we can get past this as fast as possible. I think that's the key. But perhaps just a chance to just have staff sit down and just kind of look a little bit more, maybe put some numbers to it. I think, and I think that's what, if I understood Councillor Tilly correctly, that was kind of in line with what he was saying as well. I kind of like the option, but.
Councillor Bowman.
I think we have to defer. I think we should look at, rather than being closed for 5 months starting in May, we should maybe look at, is there some way we could be partially open for part of that period and only have to close it maybe for a month or two?
Yes.
I think we have to close it for the entire 5 months. Like, I understand it's gonna be inconvenience. But maybe the compromise is, rather than being closed for the entire 5 months, maybe it's gonna be closed for 3 months, I don't know, or 2 months. Maybe staff needs to look at that, come back to us with some ideas. And again, I agree with the concern about 24 highway. I don't want to see a backup on the highway, so I think we're gonna have to look at which direction the one lane will be open. That may mean he's still gonna have a 20-minute added onto his route in one direction. So I mean, it's not gonna be a perfect solution, but I think we have to look at some alternatives here for the residents and for the businesses on both sides of the footbridge.
Councillor Russell.
Is there a way to accept our preferred vendor and speak to them about some of the suggestions that Mr. Wilson had about extending hours, working evening, like work with them towards, is it possible to cut this timeline down, or as Councillor Owen well said, keep the road open for certain times? Like, I mean, I'm afraid if we just defer this and then go back and start, back and forth with, hey, can you open, can you stay, can you work for one lane, like this, these aren't answers we're gonna have tomorrow.
But this is a bid document that's come back and agreed upon. So we cannot assume that we're gonna make changes. I wanna know if we make changes, I wanna know what it's gonna cost us.
But
I don't
are
wanna
we-
make any decisions until I know that. And also, this bidder may say, I think this is the season where they're accepting bids and so he'll take the next job. Councillor Russell.
Are we allowed to start talking with a vendor?
That's
If they're not a voted vendor, if we haven't chosen them, I mean, does that not look like collusion if we start looking at one vendor and saying, hey, nudge, wait, we need you to do this? Because we need to keep our residents and businesses happy. And then all of a sudden you have another vendor going, wait a second, that's not in the tender document. Like, we've talked about stuff like this before. Like, unless we choose somebody, can we start playing around with them? Like we can't do that. We can't negotiate anything until we choose somebody, or we defer it and throw it out and start all over again.
So
Madam Mayor, that's why I gave you the third option if you deferred, because I want to make sure that we do not interfere with the integrity of the bid document. If you award the contract as presented, it is on the premise of the full closure of the footbridge during the time of the construction window. All bidders bid that way. If we award to the preferred bidder based on the scoring of the low compliant bid, in this case, KB Civil, and I approach them then to say, okay, what would it be if I kept, and let's work on the premise that we would keep one lane open, but it would only be in an easterly direction. In other words, traffic generated off of West River Road could continue through to the Highway 24 corridor. And we just alternate lanes depending upon which side the construction was occurring. Two things, I don't know if the ministry would allow that in the context of the relationship of their road. Question one, but question two is, I now have a bidder who's got a contract. And they, through a change order, the scope of work changes. And that could artificially now drive up the price. I know it's gonna be more expensive because of more days on site, but because they're now the only bidder of record, they could inflate the number above and beyond, just because they're the only vendor of record. So I would prefer if council wishes staff to assess implications and opportunities for different traffic management scenarios. My preference would be that you just defer a decision, allow staff time to return back to council. Looking at, just keep it broad, alternative traffic management scenarios. And we'll have that discussion both with the Ministry of Transportation as well as our consultant of record, SAP Engineering, and what their industry understanding would be in terms of cost and what those alternative scenarios would look like.
That's awesome.
Is it through you, Madam Mayor, to CEO McNeely, is it possible to issue to all the bidders an amendment to our bid?
Well, then we have to go back out into the marketplace. Because it's a new bid document.
That's fine, but is it not, would it be any quicker just to do an amendment and put it back out rather than?
Basically, it's a new document, so we would start all over again, so we'd be in the marketplace for, approximately 30 days and then coming, obviously then lining them back to whatever a future council meeting would look like in that time period. I would suggest to you.
Situation, what if all these new bids come in higher than yes, and we can't afford it? But we already turned this right down,
But the way you're talking about it, is this a faster process?
30 days for a bid.
It could potentially be. I don't know. I haven't spoken to SAP Engineering about these alternatives. They may have already had that cursory review. And that may have been why the document was framed in the manner in which it was.
Councilwoman.
Madam Mayor, so just to play devil's advocate, if we can't get this worked out with staff in the next little while, can we defer this project to 2027?
See how long it be.
So, Madam Mayor, through to Councillor Rowland, the bridge isn't gonna fall down tomorrow. Okay, so, there's no scaremongering there. The bridge is in need of rehabilitation. My concern about delaying it till calendar year 27 is this is one of 4 bridges we need to do. And at some point, they all start to snowball onto each other. And it's a cash flow component, as well as we're not advancing key infrastructure in a timely manner. So it could potentially have budgetary implications. I don't know what the cost centers are gonna be in 27 versus 26. We feel we got a good bid price through all of the bidders, but obviously KB Civil was the low compliant bid. The unknown is what is 27 and what are those cost centers. The other is just general workload. At some point, there's a lot of projects to manage, and how do we balance all of these projects?
Councilor Taylor.
You were making my way around the table, so I'm just gonna
Yeah.
finish up that. So my personal opinion with listening to the tone of CAO McNeely, that we could very easily defer this for 2 weeks, just to allow some more information to come in. And then we could decide at that point, based on the information, to move ahead with the contract, to actually issue it at that point, or we could just choose to go a different route. But if we just make that decision tonight without deferring, we miss out on an opportunity to listen to more information staff we gather in that period of time, which I think is gonna be important to residents, but potentially important as Councillor Roman also mentioned, is there might be another option that he just threw out there that's kind of, heebie-jeebies about not doing something, but maybe that is the best route. We have no idea. I actually, as much as I used to do this, my fingers off the pulse so hard, I have no idea right now if a lot of contractors are dying for work, like because they're slow, or, and it happens, I've been a part
There's a
of
lot
it.
of roads this year. The
Yeah.
region just passed a $200 million roads budget for this summer.
Mhm.
There's a lot of road.
And that's 20 kilometers, right? Just kidding. But all that to say that we don't know that till until Mr. McNeely puts his hand to the pulse and actually sees it. So my support would be to short deferment get a little bit more information back and then make that choice without putting it far back.
Council Austin, please.
I agree to an extent that we need to explore some more options. I'm worried about, going down a path and investigating what can and can't be done, and then the minister turn around and say, no.
Well, that's part of what you're
Then,
asking the ministry.
the minister says no. You know, it's out of our
Well, if they
hands,
say no, then we know.
But that'll be part of,
but we don't know the answer to that
that'll be
now.
part of the CO.
So we don't know the answer to that now, so I guess, what is it, option C, did you say option 3? To defer and you can go back to the preferred vendor, even though we haven't, we said that they're preferred, because we haven't voted. So we're calling them the preferred vendor when we haven't voted, so.
CO McNeely.
So Madam Mayor, just to provide clarity, I'm not asking you to pick a preferred vendor, because then you're locking yourselves into the tender document as presented, which would be the full closure during the construction window. If council does not support the recommendation from staff as presented at this moment in time, you would defer the consideration of PW report number 05/2026. And that staff return at a future council meeting with further analysis and framework of costing to look at alternative traffic management programs associated with the rehabilitation of the footbridge.
Councilor
So would that give you enough time to potentially feel out the ministry as to whether they would have any issue?
So like my first call would be to the ministry, because if they say no, then we're in a jackpot. If they are okay, let's just say with maintaining traffic only in an easterly fashion, then it will queue on to Highway 24 corridor. Then my next conversation will be with staff engineering to look at what are the implications of alternative means of traffic management. And based on their experience, what does that translate into in terms of additional potential costs? Because we've got the order of magnitude of what materials and labor are for varying components of the work program. And they would be able then to, based on their industry experience, give us a representative number for that discussion back to Township Council.
Councilor Logan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think we should look at the bigger picture. If you look forward to 11.2.10, we're looking at 2 more bridges. We're looking at Piper Street and Sheller. So Piper Street is being moved back a year, Sheller's being pushed forward a year. All I'm suggesting is that rather than looking at footbridge in isolation, maybe look at 3 bridges total and say, if we can do 2 of them, maybe we do Piper Street and Sheller this year, and we push footbridge back to next year. I mean, it isn't set in stone that we have to do footbridge. But here in the next report coming up, it says basically we have to push Piper Street back in order to do Sheller. So maybe the solution is we do Sheller and Piper, and then we do footbridge next year. That's the one I'm suggesting, is that we look at all 3 bridges at once.
CO McNeely.
So Madam Mayor, we have Jedburgh Dam Bridge next year as well. There are 4 bridges, that's what I mentioned a moment ago. We have 4 bridges, and Sheller came out of the blue and has been pushed up to try and smooth out our spending, but also to smooth out time commitments in terms of managing projects. That's why we flipped Sheller with Piper Street. So the reality is, the footbridge is your biggest bridge structure. It's a 122 meter span bridge over the Grand River. It's a fairly complicated project. Your other bridges, while significant because of the environmental systems in which they reside, they are smaller span. And we believe that we can deal with both Sheller and Jedburgh in 1 year. And then in the 3rd year, it would be Piper Street. We have the engineering design done for Piper Street. It was done last year in 2025. What we had planned on doing this year was getting the permits from Ministry of Natural Resources, Department of Fisheries and Oceans, as well as if applicable the Grand River Conservation Authority for Piper Street this year. We're saying we'll push that to 27. And then that project will be done in 28. SAF Engineering, who did the design drawings for Piper Street last year, has indicated to us that pushing Piper out 1 year will not significantly accelerate the deterioration or scope of work proposed for Piper Street. They do not share that opinion with Scheller.
Councilor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think we should just keep Footbridge on its own little special place right now, just defer it, and then we can talk about Scheller and Piper separate, since there are on different timelines, there's different needs and business impacts there.
So with that being said, I'm going to call the motion, Councilor Tilly.
Okay, reading the motion. Moved by myself, second by Councilor Rowland, sorry, that P report number 05/2026 be received. And the council approves the report of the contract MD 2026 C5 RFT for the Footbridge Road Bridge Rehabilitation Project in the amount of $1,498,314.07 plus HST to KB Civil Constructors Incorporated. And then a project contingency of $600,000 net HST be established, and then a budget of $222,345.60 net HST be included for professional administration and related professional services, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute any necessary documents and facilitate the completion of this project.
All those in favor? Opposed? Defer? Carried. Thank you. Next, we have report number public group 06/2026 tender ND 2026C6 RFT for 2026 road construction project, Greenfield Road, Dumfries Road to approximately 1986 Greenfield Road. Any questions from the board about Greenfield Road? Councilors, any questions? Councilor Williams.
So we are closing down Greenfield Road. Have businesses in the area, will businesses, and this is a question for you, staff, will businesses in the area be also notified of this closure during this time? I think that's my main question.
CO McNally.
So, Madam Mayor, a portion of the construction window does require the full closure of the road, because we're actually excavating the road bed out down roughly 1 meter to 1.5 meters, and then bringing in new appropriate granular material, rebuilding the road, and then obviously 3 layers of asphalt and guardrails and so during the period when we're excavating, the road had to be closed because, as I said, we're removing roughly 1 meter, 1.5 meters of depth. So yes, we will be notifying it's the grain mill as well as the secondary pit. They own 2 pits. One's on Dumfries Road and one's on Greenfield. We'd be notifying them of the road closure. Once we have the contractor on board, we have a better understanding of when in the construction schedule that closure will occur and roughly what that time period would be in terms of days. And that would be communicated. And then obviously during the portion of the road closure, it would be there would be the detour routing signage put up to assist people work their way around that portion of Greenfield. When people can travel through the corridor, albeit when construction is continuing, there would be signal flag people that would allow sequenced movements of vehicles while the construction continues. And then it would generally be in a condition of allowing passage in the evenings and weekends when construction is not occurring. So it would be very, very staged and would be articulated as such.
Any other questions? Seeing none, can I have the motion from Councilor Rowland?
Moved by myself, second by Council Reynolds, that P report number 06.26 be received, and that council approve the award of tender ND 2026 C6 RFT for the 2026 Greenfield Road Reconstruction Project to Eaton Seacom Incorporated Branch Pro Construction in the amount of $367,074.40 plus HST, and the council approve an allowance of $30,000 plus HST for required materials testing, inspection, and contract administration required for the project. And that allowance of $135,000 be established for any provisional requirements related to the project, including soil conditions, etc. The mayor and clerk be authorized to execute any necessary documents associated with this project.
All those in favor? Yeah, thank you. Is there any vote to the board? Oh, okay.
Our cases.
Okay. Next we have Shelley Road Bridge. PW 07-2026 Shelley Road Bridge update. See, any questions from the public? Councilor, any questions? Councilor Williams.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I read the letter from the resident there with a lot of interest, and they were talking about, there's a lot of traffic going across that bridge that doesn't belong on a bridge, with the maximum limit signs. And I was wondering, Madam Mayor, if staff could, request that Waterloo Police, maybe do some checks on that because this bridge is not in good condition and construction should not be worked on that bridge. It's just, everything really bad.
See over here, so director, is that okay? Thank you, sir. Anything else, councilors? Can I have the motion, please, Councilor Lawson?
Moved by myself, second by Council Walden, that PW report number 07-2027 be received, and that. That's right, 2027.
Yeah.
And that council authorized the deferral.
Is that report 2027?
Yes,
2027, okay,
so right now it's in 26, you're moving into 27.
okay.
PW report number 07-2027 be received. And that council authorized the deferral of Piper Street Bridge work in the 2026 capital budget to 2027 to facilitate for the design and permits related to the Sheldon Road Bridge in 2026.
Sorry, Councilor Lawson, should it be 27 or 26? That's the question.
W07-2026.
It should be 2026. Can we make that correction, please?
So we have report number 07-2026.
Correct.
2027.
My screen says 2026.
Yeah, ours is 2027.
Okay. Can't understand why did it get cut and pasted after the report.
Anyways, let's go.
Right.
Yeah, please, start again, please.
So I can continue, and the council approved the deferral of the Piper Street reconstruction in the 10-year forecast from 2027 to 2028. And to bring forward the reconstruction of the Sheldon Road Bridge from 2028 to 2027. And the council reallocate $40,000 set aside in the 2026 capital budget for the securing of permits for the Piper Street Bridge project to the new scope of work associated with the Sheldon Road Bridge engineering design and permit approvals. And the council added an additional $60,000 to the amended 2026 capital budget to funding to account for the full scope of work attributed to the Sheldon Road Bridge engineering design / permit approvals project. And the council established an allowance of $18,000 in the amended 2026 capital budget to fund interim work on the Sheldon Road Bridge to ensure applicable road public safety measures, and that the additional funding requirements $78,000 to undertake the decision design engineering / permit and interim repairs associated with the Sheldon Road Bridge project in 2026 be funded from the aggregate reserve account.
All those in favor? Good, thank you. Correspondence, Councilor Williams, you have the motion, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was just wondering if.
Is there a senior? Is there a senior?
If any council member had a senior in mind.
Mr. Senior's got somebody in the correspondence. Nominate.
I was thinking Janella.
Robert Jean.
Yeah.
I agree. Didn't we nominate her last year?
I'm wondering.
And I thought she won last year.
Yeah.
She won last year. Yeah, we can't do it.
It's a good idea.
Yeah, we did that last
You're ahead of your time.
Yeah.
We're behind.
I recommend Council Austin.
I'm not a senior yet. What's the limit for senior?
What about Kate Preston? As Kate hasn't really been acknowledged, has she? Kate Preston.
Oh, let's see.
Yeah, that's good.
Let's do Kate Preston.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Oster, that the correspondence for the Ministry for Seniors and Accessibility be received, and that council nominate Kate Pressman for the 2026 Ontario Senior of the Year Award.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. There's a couple of these here.
Mayor, the same question.
You nominate someone to the Order of Canada of Ontario, Lieutenant Governor, regarding recognition and excellence. Any thoughts? It doesn't have to be a senior, Councilor Roy.
I was thinking Bob Marshall,
Oh, wouldn't that be fabulous?
right?
Yeah,
He said so much.
he has. So. You know, okay, all right, so we're putting Bob Marshall.
Bob Marshall is, how would you describe Bob Marshall?
Interesting.
There you go.
Musical, he taught years and years of school music. He comes out to almost every community event, volunteers all over, sponsors a ton of stuff. Quietly, he just goes about and does it. He just does. Okay, next Councilor Tully, please.
Yes, moved by myself, second by Councillor Williams, that the correspondence from the Office of Lieutenant General be received and that council nominate Bob Marshall for the 2026 Order of Ontario.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. All right, move into closed session. Councilor, I was like, you look like this. Councilor Austin?
Moved by myself, second by Councilor Ryan, that council move into closed sentence at 7:31 PM pursuant to municipal act section as 39(2) to discuss closed session report number CAO -11 2026. Township property acquisition of disposal matters. Proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Councilwoman, please the motion to come out of closed.
Moved by myself, second by Councilor Will, that council reconvene into open session at 7:47 PM.
All those in favor? Thank you. And the motion coming from closed, Councilor Tilly, please.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Faulkner, that staff are directed to provide notice of the potential sale and disposition of the former East River Road allowance describing as parts 1, 2, and 4 of Plan 558R-222460 and parts 1 and 2, Plan 58R-22498 to the abutting landowners located 1425 and 1505 Brantford Highway in accordance with the applicable provisions by bylaw number 3584-15 Township Property Disposition Bylaw. And then a staff report be prepared for council's consideration at a future meeting on the potential sale and disposition of the lands associated with the former East River Road allowance to the abutting landowners located 1425 and 1505 Brantford Highway in accordance with bylaw 3584-15.
All those in favor? That's good, thank you. And next, a motion for the bylaws, please, Council Rose.
Moved by myself, seconded by Council Tilly, that the following bylaws be read a first and second time. 17.1 bylaw number 3633-26, being a bylaw to adopt proposed official plan amendment number 33 to the Township of North Dumfries official plan. 17.2 bylaw number 3634-26, being a bylaw to further amend general zoning bylaw number 689-83 as amended to the Township of North Dumfries. And 17.3 bylaw number 3635-26, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council on April 13, 2026.
Thank you. And Council Tilly, the bylaws, whatever reading record, please file it.
Moved by myself, second by Councilor Roman, that bylaws numbers 3633-26, 3634-26, and 3635-26 be read at third final time and signed, sealed by Mayor and Clerk.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. And Council Austin, you can adjournment.
Moved by myself, second by Council Rowland, whereas this council meeting has been completed at 7:45 p.m.
How many? 49?
Oh, sorry. Clear late, 7:49 p.m. And be it resolved that this meeting adjourns.
All those in favor?